Hello, everybody. I hope you are all well. Today, I'm going to be talking about my May favorites. Um, decks that I worked with, crystals that I used, herbs that I worked with, and books that I read. I was away for a couple weeks in April, and I read an enormous amount. And that was mainly because for 2 weeks I was in Barbados, and we went to the beach almost every day. And I just sat on that beach and read and read and read. And then at night I read and read and read. And it was just so great to get back into reading, which I had not been doing as much of over the past year or so, maybe even more. Anyway, this month in May, my reading veracity has continued. And by the end of May, I finished, I would say 6 or 7 books. I've just brought my favorites here. I got them all from the library, and they're fiction. So I'm going to start with the one that I read first. I think I might have even started this the end of April, but I did finish it in May. And you can see it's a real chunker. So this is Something to Hide by Elizabeth George. And I think this is the 21st book in her series. And I have read maybe not all of them, but most of them. And they they take place in London, mainly, other parts of England, but Inspector Thomas Linley works for Scotland Yard. And he has a colleague, Barbara Havers, who's a sergeant, and, two more different people we couldn't find, and yet they work together well. I just wanted to read a little something about Elizabeth George here. So it says that she is the author of 21 psychological suspense novels. So I call this a mystery book, but I like that she's called it a psychological suspense novel. In all of her books, at least all that I've read, in addition to the mystery, she also deals with, I'll just call them social issues for lack of a better term. But some of the things she's dealt with are alcoholism, dementia, suicide, so lots of different mental health issues, domestic violence, classism, racism, sexism, all kinds of things. And in this book, which is 680 something pages, she deals with domestic violence again, but also female genital mutilation. And so if you're not familiar with that issue, in several African countries, it is tribal custom to cut away parts of female anatomy, the labia, the clitoris, and it is done quite crudely. Many times the girls that this is done to end up dying from infection, and if they don't die from infection, they have long-term reproductive health problems, and of course they never enjoy sex. They never have sexual pleasure because they've taken the clitoris off. The belief is that it purifies the females to have this done. And sadly, the people doing the procedures are almost always women too. And it's sort of like, well, it was the tradition, we had this done, and now we're doing it to our, daughters and granddaughters and so forth. And so I find it, as a feminist and as a humanist, I do find it horrifying, and yet it does make me think, well, it's cultural, it's tribal, and yet it's horrible. So you have to kind of think about that. It is something, I've always worked in women's health, public health in my whole career. And in the late 70s, I worked for a Title X family planning program, and I went to a conference, and one of the issues that was being discussed in the late 70s was, at that time they were calling it female circumcision. As time has gone by, now it's called female genital mutilation, which is really actually quite more accurate. Anyway, it was a really good book, really intense. I couldn't put it down. I mean, I just read and read and read, and anytime anything else, like, working or making dinner or whatever happened, I was like, ooh, I gotta get back to my book. So anyway, it was a really good book. And once again, Elizabeth George has brought in multiple social issues, not just the female genital mutilation, but she's also brought in racism, police brutality, and sexism, domestic violence. So quite a few different topics were brought into this book, and it was quite compelling, I must say. So if you have never read anything by Elizabeth George and you like psychological suspense novels as opposed to mysteries, they do tend to run on the darker side. Oh, another thing that was addressed in this book, or was part of the plot, was one couple in the book had a child that had multiple problems, handicaps, and they talked about, in the book, that was part of the plot, and how this couple were dealing with taking care of a seriously disabled child, and the impact it had on their lives. So that was another kind of social issue. All right, next up, another one of my favorite authors, Sara Paretsky. This is Overboard, a V.I. Warshawski novel. And I'm not sure how many. 23. There's 23. Again, I've been reading these novels since Sara Paretsky started this series. V.I. Warshawski is a determined, courageous, intelligent, strong, with a sense of social justice and integrity. And these novels take place in Chicago, and there's a lot about the Chicago police in here. VI's dad was a higher up in the Chicago police force. But since then, she has become aware of all kinds of police brutality, racism, classism, all kinds of things that happen in the Chicago police. And in fact, in one of the plots or subplots of this book has to do with an interrogation center. Homan Center or something is the name of it. And you know what, I've got to Google it and see if it actually is a real place. But basically, people are arrested and taken to this interrogation center, and families can't find them, lawyers can't find them, and sometimes they just disappear. Sometimes, actually, VI was taken there and got the crap beaten out of her. But because she's well known, and somehow she managed to, come out alive. So this also dealt with dementia, how we treat our elders. So this has Sara Paretsky also does a lot of including of important social issues in her mysteries. And also VI has 2 dogs, so there's a lot about dogs in her novels as well. And as a dog person, I love that. Anyway, great book, really loved it. She again, like Elizabeth George, does a wonderful job. These aren't fluffy books, and these aren't fluffy authors. They deal with some hardcore issues, and there is quite a bit of violence, especially in the Sara Paretsky books. The third favorite book this month is not a mystery. It's called Black Cake, and it's by Charmaine Wilkerson. I believe it's her first book. Yes, her first full-length novel. She has written some short stories. Here she is. So I think I mentioned when I did either my March or April favorites that we have a new bookstore in the next town over from us called Footsteps Bookstore and Cafe, and it is a Black woman-owned bookstore. So I really want to, as I'm sitting here with all my library books, I'm about to say I really want to support that bookstore because it's a Black woman-owned bookstore. So before we went to Barbados in April, we always reach out to my husband's family, to our family, and say, hey, what do you guys want? So one of my nieces said she wanted me to bring her some books. So I went to the bookstore, and one of the books that the owner of the bookstore recommended for me was Black Cake. And interestingly enough, Black Cake, this is a novel about a West Indian family who have emigrated to the United States. They never say specifically what island they're from. That's kind of a tricky aspect to the book. But Black Cake is something that is part of many Caribbean island cultures. I know, so the tradition that I'm aware of, at least from in Barbados, is that a black cake is used as a wedding cake. For my husband and me, we had kind of the American traditional, layer cake for what we called the bride's cake, and then the black cake was the groom's cake. And one of Bob's relatives made the black cake for us. And it's what you do is you take dried fruits, dried cherries, and all kinds of dried fruits, and you soak them in rum and port for months. And you add that to the cake. So it's sort of like a fruit cake, but no, it's black. And it's because they kind of caramelize and almost burn the sugar that they use in the cake. So our wedding cake was in the shape of Barbados and frosted with this beautiful buttercream frosting, and the parishes were outlined, and it was really beautiful. And the tradition is that you take a chunk of the cake and we scraped off the buttercream frosting and we put it in a tin and poured rum over it. And you wait until your first anniversary and you have a slice, and you each have a slice, and you keep adding rum to it, and you keep having it on your anniversary for as many years as the cake lasts. So we did do that. So I was attracted to this book because of a personal connection to black cake. Anyway, this was a wonderful novel. And as I said, part of it takes place in the Caribbean, and then part of it, the family emigrates to the United States. And so a lot of it takes place in the United States, part of it in England too. And it's a family drama. It's multiple generations of dysfunction and how the mother, or the sort of middle generation, on her deathbed, makes a recording for her children, hoping that she can resolve the dysfunction. And there's a lot of secrets, and in this recording that the mother makes for the children, who actually hear the recording after the mother dies, she reveals intergenerational secrets, hoping that, it will end up being healing for her children. So it was a really good book. I loved having it, reading about the Caribbean culture that I am, closely connected to, because I am part of a West Indian Barbadian family, and it's very close to my heart. And I am quite fond of the culture of Barbados, the people of Barbados, and the food of Barbados, including black cake. So I recommend this book as well. It's not a mystery per se, but there is a little bit of a mystery to it. Those are my books. Sorry, 15 minutes on that. Herbs. So we're really coming now into the herbal time of year, so I am getting so excited. And the first plant I wanted to talk about was lady slipper, one of my favorite plant spirits, and it is endangered. It's on the endangered list. So even though I would love to make a lady slipper flower essence, I will not. I cannot, I won't, it's not right, it's endangered. So I have to, when I see lady slipper, I take in her energy that way. And that's my flower essence. So about the middle of May, I often, well, all the time, year round, I go on woodland walks with my sister mainly, and my dogs, since Rusty passed, now just Luna. So middle of May, I went for a walk with Luna. My sister was away on vacation. And as I was, kind of entering the path or the trail, I got this boom, this kind of hit, lady slipper. And I thought, oh, no, it's too early for lady slippers. We're not going to see them for a while. But anyway, I'm walking along. I look down, boom, lady slipper. Wow. So I decided not to do the whole loop that day. And Luna and I turned around and came back. On the way out, I saw another lady slipper. So it was sort of weird, because the lady slipper that I saw on the way in, I didn't see on the way out, even though I was looking for her. And the lady slipper that I saw on the way out, I didn't see on the way in. So that was kind of interesting. So pretty much every day, almost every day, I even want to say every day, it's now June 6th, I think I'm making this. Every day since like May 16th, May 15th, that I've gone for a woodland walk, I've seen lady slippers. And in fact, one day I saw a scene exactly like this. 3 lady slippers together, and I called it the lady slipper trifecta. So this is the lady slipper card from the Lisa Esterbrook's Soul Flowers Oracle, Soul Flowers Plant Spirit Oracle. So let me just read you. So lady slipper, the key word is connection, When you are feeling weary, exhausted, and disconnected, Lady Slipper can help restore your soul's connection to your physical body. She will help infuse your daily life with guidance and intuition directly from divine, so that you can fully enjoy and participate in life, inhabit and explore your sensual body, and walk the path your soul intends. So that is so beautiful and so lovely. So one of the first days when I came across Lady Slipper, I just sat down on the trail next to her, and I just expressed my gratitude to her, and I just listened to what she had to say. And she said her medicine is really important for heart healing, for opening the heart, so that we can be open and loving and kind to others, in particular those that we find least lovable. So that was what Lady Slipper told me. So I've been seeing her, as I said, just about on a daily basis still. So June 6th, so it's like 3 or 4 weeks since I saw my first one, and I'm still seeing them. Such a treat. So the two herbs that I was engaging with in May was, first of all, nettle. And Lisa says nettle is for transformation. And nettle comes up around here very early in April. So we can start making nettle tea in April. So nettle, I was drinking a lot of nettle tea. It's great for seasonal allergies. It's full of minerals and vitamins and just really earthy and wonderful. So that, and then rose. So it used to be that this is Rosa rugosa, so wild rose, or here on Cape Cod, beach rose. And here, it used to be that I didn't start seeing the beach roses bloom until the beginning of June. And now, I guess because of climate change, we're starting to see it towards the end of May. So I started seeing and all around me, and including the huge patch of Rosa rugosa beach rose I have growing in my yard, starting to pop open, probably the 4th week of May. So I started picking the rose petals, and so I pick the petals, but I leave that center part because that goes on to form the rose hip in the fall. Also, that's where all the pollen is, and that's what the bees love. So I will just carefully pluck the petals off, but leaving that center bit that, as I said, goes on to form the rose hip. I have actually like just a little, can you see how pink it is? This is rose petal tea. It has a little bit of lemon balm and milky oats in it, but you can see how lovely and pink it is. And when you strain off the rose petals, they are white. So all the color of the rose petals goes into the tea. So that rose is heart healing and on a metaphysical and physical level. I've talked about this a million times on this channel, but I guess I will again quickly. In Lisa's deck, she says rose is joy. Rose is comforting and soothing, infusing your heart and soul with gratitude and joy, and helping you stay centered and loving to yourself and others when it is needed most. Rose reminds you to be open to the sweetness of life and supports your personal growth, whatever the conditions surrounding you may be. So those were my herbs for May. I also was working a little bit with hawthorn and milky oats. So, I have started making my rose petal elixir. So here's a batch that I started a couple days ago, and every day I add more rose petals and push them down, and then I put vegetable glycerin over top, and I store this in the the basement because it's dark and cool down there. And you really, when you think about it, you think, oh, okay, great. Throw some rose petals in a jar and cover it with, vegetable glycerin. What could be easier than that? But it's a little more involved in that. You really have to. Do you hear people talk about how you have to feed a spell? Like a candle spell, you can't just light it and forget it. Well, this is kind of the same thing. You have to feed it. And what I mean by that is you have to put your intentions into it. And what happens, you can even see here how the roses start to float up. And if any are exposed to the air, they'll start to oxidize and brown, and they could potentially turn the whole batch bad. So you have to, every day, you have to shake it and push the petals down and maybe pour a little bit more glycerin on. You have to tend it and care for it and put your intentions in it. That's how you make really potent herbal medicine. So anyway, 6 to 8 weeks from now, I will be bringing forward more rose petal elixir. And I know quite a few of you have reached out to me about it and are looking forward to it. So yay, it will be ready soon. All right, decks. So I have a few here, a little pile. And I wanted to first talk about, my weaver for the month of May. So here's the Weaver's Oracle, and I do pull one weaver at the beginning of each month, and I have a little card stand front and center on my altar, and that's where the weaver of the month goes, so I can see her every day, anytime I sit down at my altar. So for May, we had Sand. Old Woman Walks Good. And Carolyn Hilliard is the creator, not just the author of the guidebook, but the artist of the Weaver's Oracle. And each weaver gets 2 pages. They get a yarn, a braid, and a cloth. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about Sand's story, because I thought it was apropos to the times we're living in now, especially here in the United States. Other countries don't seem to have the gun violence like we have here. And now we're really basically having a mass shooting every day. And I am in my late 60s now, and I have been protesting and been a social activist and worked in women's health and been in a member of the Women's International League of Peace and Freedom, and on and on. And back in my younger days, when we protested the Vietnam War and it ended, we protested lack of legal abortion, and we got Roe versus Wade. Those were 2 things I worked on. Before my time were activists like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, Fannie Lou Hamer, and folks like that, who brought forward civil rights and voting acts changes, and Brown versus the Board of Education, and ending Jim Crow segregation. So, those things happened in the 60s and 50s, 60s, and 70s. And being in my 20s at that time, I naively thought, we've changed the culture. Yay! So meanwhile, now in 2022, we very well may lose the right to legal abortion. Racism is peaking. Laws are being passed to suppress voting rights, making it as difficult for people of color to register to vote as possible. And you know what's happening here. And it's really disheartening. It's really depressing. It really makes you angry. It really makes you sad. And it sometimes makes me feel like I can't do it anymore. I'm just too tired. I can't do it anymore. And my daughter will say to me, Mom, your generation. And I kind of laugh because I remember saying to my mother, Mom, your generation. But anyway, the point of all this blabbering is to say what Sand talks about is she and the elders are sitting around a fire and they're just having a discussion, and these young women from a different tribe in a different place show up. And, they want to know, they want to be instantly wise women. They're, kind of saying, well, your generation. So anyway, Sand, old woman walks good, takes the younger women on a walkabout. And, during the walk, they'll stop here and they'll learn a lesson here and they'll hear a story there. And, by the end of her yarn and her braid and her cloth, we see that there is an integration between the young women and the old women, and that they have come together and realize that working together is the way to move forward and transform all that is wrong in the world. And so that was my May card. And I'm really hoping, I'm reaching out to young people saying, how can we dialogue? How can we work together? How can we create change? Because my goodness, it's desperately needed. So anyway, that's my weaver for the month of May. A deck that I worked with, a tarot deck that I worked with in May is a favorite of mine, Super Lunaris. And I'm not going to say too much about it. I talk about this deck a lot. I think it's beautiful. It's a collage deck. I love that there's a variety of people, old, young, different genders, different body types, all different kinds of folks. And that's something that I really appreciate. It is Rider-Waite-Smith based, and it has this beautiful rose gold copper edging. It now comes in a linen, ungilded, straightforward deck, and I think a pocket. Oh, look at that knight. Oh, and the High Priestess. I really like that they have portrayed the High Priestess as an older woman. I like that a lot. So, and I love this Nine of Wands. So that was a deck I used quite a bit in the month of May. And I continued my court card studies from April into the month of May. And I used the court cards from this deck as part of my studies. So that is Super Lunaris. And then another tarot deck that I used was Tarot of Mystical Moments. I just love this deck. It's funny because when the Oracle came out, it just didn't speak to me. And when the Tarot came out, I thought, I don't think I'm going to want this. And then I started seeing, look at the hummingbird. I started seeing folks posting this deck, and I said, wait a minute, I love this. This is so whimsical and beautiful and different. I really, really love this deck a lot, and had got some really good readings from it. Look at that death card, my goodness, during May. So those were two of the several decks I worked with in May. And then for oracles, so I worked with this one, Messages from the Light. And this is a little bit of a, do I want to say schmaltzy deck? But I needed it in May. I mean, I need it now too. I just needed something that was going to be kind of a heart healer. So I don't care for the book really too much. So I basically just pull a card a day and look at the keyword. I really love the artwork. There's maybe 3 or 4 cards, the artwork I'm not crazy about. But most of them I really like quite a bit. And I find it to be, a good healing deck. So, Grace. So this is one of the decks that I worked with in May. And as I said, I enjoy it quite a bit. I really don't use the guidebook. And so 2 favorite tarots and 2 favorite oracles. This is the Messages from the Light is by Joyce Huntington. And the Mystical Moments is Katrine Weltstein. And this is Sandra Kuntz. I love this. I love this deck. It is just beautiful. I get amazing messages from it. It just really is kind of startling sometimes how good the messages are. I love this one, Evolution. Can you see? So it's about balancing the male and the female energies. Lots of crows. Mother Earth. Yeah. So, sorry this took so long. My goodness, I was blabbing away. I don't know. I think it was the books and whatever. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about anything that I brought up in this video. I love interacting with you all. I love it when you comment. So please do drop a comment. What decks worked for you? What books did you read? Did you have any favorite plants or crystals or whatever for the month of May? And I just want to say I'm sending out peace and loving kindness from my heart to yours. And may we come together and intersectionally find a way to walk forward in a more peaceable manner. Blessings, my friends.